Good afternoon. With the Committee on Zoning, please come to order. At this point in time, I would like to welcome committee members Cordero, Radiant. You look radiant this afternoon. You're very welcome. Vice Chair DeSantos Tam and our Esther. She looks like Esther Kiana. Yes. Also, I'd like to share with all of you that committee member Wire is excused from today's meeting. Let's proceed on. Although remote oral testimony is being permitted, this is a regular in-person meeting and not a remote meeting by interactive conference technology under section HRS 92-3.7. Therefore, the meeting will continue notwithstanding loss of audiovisual communication with remote testifiers or loss of the public broadcast of the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda in two ways: remotely and in person in the council chamber. Oral testimony will be allowed when each agenda item is taken up in the following order. First, it will be remote testimony, and secondly, it will be the in-person testimony in the council chamber. Before testifying, each person shall state their name, their full name, and the agenda item they are talking or testifying on. And each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation per item. All persons who have registered to testify remotely by video conference or by phone will be called upon first. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. The following are some friendly reminders and tips. Video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you are watching the proceeding on Olelo, please mute your device at the time you are called to testify. When the timer on the screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. For those who are joining us by telephone only, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. I would identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. When your number is called, please press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. Once all the remote testifiers have testified, I will proceed to in-person testimony in the council chamber, and persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all of your cell phones. Moving on to agenda item number 1, which is the only agenda that we have for today, which is this afternoon, is an informational briefing by High Ridge Costa and the Hawaii Public Housing Authority on the Mayor Right Homes Redevelopment Master Plan. Exemptions from certain requirements are being sought under 201H-38, which is the Hawaii Revised Statutes, without, once more members, without a council approval in accordance with the governor's emergency proclamation. The Director of Planning and Permitting may approve the application for exemptions by execution of a memorandum of record. I'm very privileged and pleased that joining us in the council chamber, we have Mo Mohana from High Ridge Costa and Hakeem, that I know very well, from the Hawaii Public Housing Authority to give a presentation on the redevelopment of Mayor Right Homes. For your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 24-2024. Members, are there any questions for High Ridge Costa or the Hawaii Public Housing Authority at this point in time? No questions. Okay. The Mayor Right Development Project involves a total of 10 residential towers and 2,448 dwelling units. It seems you are planning to finance a little more than half of the total units as low-income housing tax credit development, which includes the Hula May multifamily bonds, federal and state tax credits, and the State Rental Housing Revolving Fund Tier 2 bonds. It appears that you plan to apply for the project financing through 2034, which is when you estimate you'll be applying for the Phase 4 financing. Okay. At this point in time, may we call upon Mr. Mo Mohana to make a presentation by High Ridge Costa, who is the developer.
Aloha and good afternoon, members of the City Council Zoning Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide you with information about Mayor Right Homes. With me here today, as Councilmember Say said, the Executive Director, Mr. Hakeem Awansafi from the HBHA, also Ben Park from HPHA. Along with me is our development team, Michael Sains to my left, Emily Davids, and Sam Marico. And we also have our architect, Launi Architects, PBR, there's Launi Architects. PBR should be here shortly, and I believe we have our traffic consultant online, hopefully to answer the questions that I cannot and making sure we get you the information that you need. Mayor Wright Homes, all of you are familiar with it, is a tract of about 14 acres with existing 364 units that the Housing Authority has owned for over 70 years. And the time has come, as you can see from the aerials that we'll show you, to move the property to its best use, understanding that the current buildings and units have reached their life expectancy and their usefulness and need to be redeveloped, hence this mission that we have. Next slide, please. We're going to talk about who our team is, what the master plan that we've worked on, focusing on phase one, which is the key one coming up because of the current infrastructure limitations. This is a development of multi-phase over multiple years. What the redevelopment process is and what the schedule that we're doing and what the next steps are. Next slide. The partnership is led by Hawaii Public Housing Authority as a co-developer and a partner in the transaction. High Ridge Costa, myself, along with our local partner, Form Partners, founder Chris Duker, has a personal commitment, was not able to attend today. Next slide, please. So the Hawaii Public Housing Authority, as I said, is a co-developer and has assembled an impressive team to work alongside High Ridge Costa and Form Partners in moving this development forward. They are truly with us as a partner in every meeting with all our consultants, fully involved in the design and providing us support every step of the way. It's been an incredibly collaborative experience working with the Housing Authority, and a testament to that, as you see from the outline, the speed upon which this and other HPHA properties have moved, again, is a testament to the collaborative relationship with the Housing Authority. Next slide, please. High Ridge Costa, as you all know, is focused on developing affordable housing. This March is our 30th birthday of doing what we do, changing lives, making communities that are really a legacy that serves future generations of Kama'aina. Next slide, please. Form Partners, our local partner with extensive experience of about 30 years as well, locally, developing commercial and condominiums as well as retail, brings an important aspect to the experience of the development team for the kaleidoscope of what is going to be developed on the Housing Authority's sites. Commitment to Hawaii. Currently, High Ridge Costa has come before you on a number of meetings and thanking you for your continued support. Has a huge focus and commitment to serve Hawaii residents by developing across multiple counties. The communities before you, some of which are completed, some under construction, all are at actually 60% AMI or lower, with the exception of two, Pohokaina Phase 1 and Pahoa Ridge, that serve communities at, well, 60% or 80% to 100% AMI. Next slide, please. HPHA went out with an RFQ for which we were selected, and I like to show both maps back to back. Two reasons. Reason number one, we no longer can fit all of the projects on one map. So, but the real reason number two is to show the vast experience of why High Ridge Costa was selected by the Housing Authority. You could see the geographic spread within Hawaii on the various counties. These show what is known as the Kale Momi portfolio, Kale Momi being the lay, and Kale Momi in that case, it's the pearl lay, because each and every property is very precious for the community that it's in and needs direct attention to what can be accomplished. These are the targeted sites to redevelop the existing units and develop at least 12,000 affordable housing units across the next 10 plus years. In that site, you will notice Mayor Wright Homes, which we'll present before you today, actually has a rendering. Kapa'a in Kauai also has a rendering, and School Street. These are projects that already are developed and designed and are moving forward. The others have completed their design studies, but of these communities, 3 are now moving forward, 1 starting construction. Next slide, please. The development team, again, Harish Costa focuses on local partners, and a local partner is not just one that is in the legal partnership, one that is working with you day in, day out, whether Launi Architects, Bills Engineering, Hawaiian Dredging, PBR, many of whom you've seen standing here next to me in previous meeting, the best of the best really in Hawaii, continue to help us achieve this important goal. Next slide. The key, before we start developing and before we start talking about what we're going to develop, is residents first, residents first, residents first. And that is the directive that was given to us by the Housing Authority before we start talking about what we're going to develop. And that is the directive within our company. We are here to serve those that need affordable housing. So when there is a situation that a relocation is going to work or anything to that sort, we make sure we conduct extensive meetings that we're going to get into. So when we did the master planning, we didn't just meet with the community at large, but we met at length with the residents. We built upon the many meetings that the Housing Authority has had over the last couple of years. We met also with neighborhood boards and communities in order to get the feedback. They've had meetings and briefings from the housing authorities over previous years, as well with city and state leaders. Taking all that input, next slide, please. What has been done? So in addition to what we've done, we've built on the work that the Housing Authority has done in the last 7 years. There's been extensive impact analysis. A full EIS at the federal level has been done and approved. We went back in and confirmed that the current design with the number of units that we're proposing conforms with that EIS, and an acceptance letter has been issued. It's the point before last that says a determination letter has been published to confirm that that EIS complies. NEPA's done, 201H application submitted to HHFDC, and also submitted to the county planning for review. In addition, and I'm sorry for the small print, but there's an extensive list of studies, whether independent or part of the EIS and the NEPA, that have been completed and evaluated, from climate to soils to cultural resources to gas utilities to traffic and all of the above. So needless to say, an extensive amount of studies and extensive amount of due diligence has been completed. Next slide, please. What is the master plan? The master plan is targeting the original number under which the EIS and the NEPA was approved, which is staying under the 2,500 units. The project is anticipating to develop 2,448 homes in 10 buildings. I was just counting to make sure, because they keep changing them on me. But in about 10 buildings. Those buildings, as you can see, are labeled A, B, C, D. We will walk through those buildings, what they are, what are the projected phases. But we wanted to kind of give you an overlay. You could see Vineyard Boulevard at the top, Liliha Street, North King Street, and Pua Lane kind of surround the property. It will have amenity, community buildings, park, outdoor recreation, gardens. The first phase is about 1.8 acres. We focused on connectivity with the surrounding neighborhood. This is not an enclosed site. It's not a gate-controlled site, but it's something that weaves into the community. Existing today, there is an entrance and an egress off of Liliha Street that goes directly across to Pua Lane. However, we are adding 2 more exits and entrances into the community to connect. There's one connecting with Pua Lane and the street across. There's another one exiting on Pua Lane, Vineyard Boulevard, and Liliha, where the existing traffic signal is. We will maintain that exit. This will provide enhanced visibility and safety. There will be on-site shopping and commercial retail. We are focusing on trans-oriented multimodal public transportation. The rail is just to the south of King Street. There's bus stations currently on Liliha and on Vineyard. And then community centers and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. So these are the buildings and what is planned. So currently, we are looking, as I mentioned, at 10 buildings. There are a couple of things we're trying to achieve with this slide to give you a background. One of them is, what is the total number of units as described, but how many units will be in each building? That's one of the objectives of this slide. The next is not really as much as the type of financing as I was looking at today, But what the type of financing designates is what is the targeted area median income. So for anything that is called LIHTC, those buildings, those units will be between 30% to 60% of the area median income. I will no longer use the word 501c3 because it's a name of a financing, but what we should be using and we will use moving forward is what target income. The target income will be from 80 to 100% area median income. So the majority of what you see of the 2,448 units, with the exception of only 253 units, will be between 30% to 100% area median income, restricted for the life of the lease, which is 75 years. So for all intents and purposes, they're 100% affordable for life. When we say 75 years, the ownership reverts to the state, to the housing authority, and the housing authority has every intention of maintaining these affordable, hence affordability in perpetuity. So that is the intention of this structure. We will move from this and we will show you how we will phase these. On the bottom portion of the site plan, I direct your attention to North King Street. Questions were asked there. You could see some properties that are blocked in gray. Those properties specifically are not owned by the housing authority. They're owned by third-party private parties and are not part of the development at this time. And so we limited our design to the property line as owned by HBHA. Next slide, please. So again, small font, sorry, but we tried to identify what the exemption requests are and summarize them so that you have them. Should the council like a detailed, which we did provide, detailed list of such exemptions, we have that and we would be more than glad to forward it to council so they have it in detail. But summarizing them in general terms, they are plan review fees, building permit fees, again, fees in general. There are certain fees that will depend if the building is 60% or below, 80% or below. The exemptions differ, or 140% or below. The exemption request will conform with the rules of the county as far as exemptions and area median incomes. We are complying with those rules. Water meter irrigation installation fees, park dedication requirements. There is exemptions being requested for maximum building area and maximum heights. We'll go back. I'm going to go back one slide. Can we go back one slide, please? From understanding what City Zoning Committee likes to look at, this slide I was remiss in not showing, we showed the heights. We showed the heights for each building. Now, in general, I want to point out that the current zoning is up to 150 feet. However, there's a TOD overlay, and the TOD overlay is not yet in place, but the TOD overlay allows 400-foot height. As you can see here, only 2 of the buildings reach about 330. So in general, in our application, we're saying up to 350 feet in order to allow for any variance in mechanical equipment or the like, so that there's no question about the height. So our application says 350-foot height. But this is a TOD site, and it would be good to evaluate it under that premise. Next slide, please. So that's the exemption slide. Anyways, continuing to density, parking, then school impact fees, general excise, and obviously city council approved exemptions. Next slide. Okay, we're really getting bad on the font. My apologies again. But a complete traffic study was completed focusing on multimodal transportation. There is restriping that is already being completed on North King Street, Eva Bound. There is going to be, we can't do much changes because there isn't availability for right-of-way acquisitions. So we have of expanding the road or changing. So with that, there is a proposed DTS recommended improvement, realignment of traffic lanes, new bicycle lanes, straightening of crosswalks, a new bus refuge, install leading pedestrian interval crosswalks, meaning make the crossing a little bit longer, working with the various departments, pedestrian refuge, which is a median in the center of the street, There's going to, on the Liliha and North Vineyard intersection, there's going to be construct a second eastbound left turn lane, turning Mauka on Vineyard to accommodate additional traffic vehicle, provision of transportation kiosks, online portal information, bicycle racks, parks, so on and so forth. There will be a traffic management plan submitted as we permit each phase. There will be an update, we'll update the MTA and provide supplemental traffic studies after the completion of each development, and we'll continue to consult with DOT, DTS, TRB to ensure best practices. So the standard requirements that we've seen from city zoning, we intend, on previous communities we've developed, we intend to comply with those. Next slide, please. So now we get into the pictures. So we're going to do two things. I'm going to walk you through some renderings that walk through the entire master plan, and then I'm going to focus on renderings on the first phase. That's the one we're focusing on starting construction. So this shows you the same 10 buildings. This is looking Mauka from King Street. And on King Street, as you know, is where the rail station is going to be. So hence the importance of connectivity there. Next slide, please. This is Eva Mackay view from Vineyard Avenue. In the corner there is the first phase, and I don't have a pointer. I don't know if we can do it on slide, but excellent. So if we go to the far right, that will be the first tower that's 30 to 60% AMI. Moving to the left, Diamond Head, this will be the second one that's 80 to 100% AMI, and moving on to the third tower, which will be the for sale tower that we are working on. Next slide, please. This is Diamond Head view from Pua Lane. Again, because we're trying to orient the building Mauka Mackay, that view you'll see more solid, but the whole idea is to really Mauka Mackay orientation. But here you could see the connectivity of the interior streets to Pua Lane. Currently there's one ingress-egress. There will be two ingress-egresses. You could see the smaller building also to the right-hand side, shorter building, because of proximity to a different land use versus a street. So we did not feel it's appropriate to go with a high tower there, unless development changes on those sites sometime in the future. But for the time being, we contemplated a smaller, shorter building. Next slide, please. This is the view Mauka Eva from Liliha Street. That the main entrance there is where the current traffic signal is located, and it crosses to the community across. We maintain that intersection uninterrupted and will be improved with sidewalks and signaling. Next. And these are some of the internal views. As you notice from the plan we had, we're focusing on internal circulation, internal parks, so it's a pedestrian-friendly, bicycle-friendly, multimodal-friendly, and it's open, connecting with the rest of the neighborhood. This is not a development that is intended to be in its own world, but it is intended to start creating the catalyst effect on the surrounding neighborhood. As a matter of fact, we've been contacted by developments that are across the street and otherwise saying, when will these plans happen? Because they hope that Mayor Wright will be the catalyst for other older properties to be further developed and improved. Next slide, please. Again, interior looks from the property, focusing on the park area, focusing on open space, focusing on inviting the community out versus in. And again, because it's open streets that are there, it invites the rest of the community to be able to benefit from the new improvement. Next slide, please. We'll go back to these, but these are just general views. Keep going. So here comes the challenge. We tried to do some perspectives. So can you highlight where the project is? It's on the left-hand side. So this is kind of, as you can see, there's ones that are zooming closer, but you could see it's starting to extend the downtown and extend where the density is going to go. Next slide. Here's another example. You'll see it in the forefront, if you can circle around. This is where it would be looking Diamond Head. Next slide. And this one, again, if you could point them out, right there in the background. Next slide. And once again, right there in the background. Let's stop at this one for a second. There's no question it's starting to go beyond where the downtown is, but we believe that pocket in there is going to continue to be developed. And therefore, this is, as I mentioned before, going to be the catalyst to the expansion of the developments that you see. Next slide. I mean, these are starting to pull out, but just the view there to kind of see overall, depending from where you're looking, it starts integrating. Next slide. So relocation, as I first mentioned, residents first, resident first, the Housing Authority, and our mission is to make sure we serve the residents. So a lot have asked, and we've had many residents meetings ourselves with the Housing Authority, and the Housing Authority has had numerous meetings. So the plan is to phase this. We will be taking down about 13 buildings, which has about 164 units in the first phase. And prior to start of construction, about 1 year prior to the start of construction, a third-party professional relocation company will be hired. That company will be reviewed and approved by HPHA. That relocation company will work with each and every family that is going to be relocated privately and in person in order to make sure they find suitable accommodations, whether those accommodations are in other public housing, HPHA-owned properties, or other areas in town. One of the key questions asked by our residents is what's going to happen to our rent? Currently, when it's public housing, it looks and acts sometimes like project-based subsidy, meaning only if you're there do you get that rental break. In this case, under both HPHA guidelines and HUD guidelines, any family living there that decides to move, let's say instead of moving to an alternate public housing to any other market apartment, will have what's called a tenant protection voucher. That tenant protection voucher allows them to be relocated to another property, even if it's not public housing or affordable housing, continue to pay the rent, the amount of rent that they qualify for, and the balance then is covered by the voucher. So as far as the resident is concerned, they're not paying any more rent for such relocation. The relocation process itself, the cost of moving, will also be covered, so that is taken care of. Once the project or the community development is completed, they will have the first right of return. If they choose to return, they come back, and instead of having project-based subsidy, they will actually continue to hold their voucher, which they have to continue qualifying on under the same conditions, allowing them to again pay that percentage of their income for that unit, regardless of the rent, whether it's the 60% or the 80% to 100% rent. Again, they are protected, and the costs for their relocation and return is also covered. If they choose to stay where they are, let's say the family has been relocated and they prefer not to move back in, they also get to keep that voucher and would have to go through the same qualification procedures and processes. So reality is it's a great relocation program that truly says resident first that they be taken care of before construction start, resident first that their rent will still be addressed so they're not being burdened by any additional rent, resident first by being given the first right of return and being able to hold that voucher so that they're paying that portion and not being rent burdened, and should they choose not to return, being able to maintain that voucher. It's not only a great program that we've put, but it's also an HPHA rule requirement and a HUD requirement. So there's significant checks and balances to make sure that these residents are taken care of. Next slide, please. So back to the site plan, as we mentioned, right now we're going to go, the orange is where phase 1 is going to be. You could see Pua Lane and Vineyard Boulevard. The reason we are asked, well, why that corner? Very simple. Infrastructure connection and connectivity happens to be there. Developer followed where the connectivity is. Smart developer, then that is the right location at this time. Why that many units? Multiple reasons. Starting first is infrastructure constraints as far as electricity, sewer, and all of the above. This phase, including the for sale component, would produce 900 plus units in just the first phase, of which you will see that the first buildings will generate about 600 plus units between 30% to 100% AMI. So in the very first phase, of Mayor Wright, from a rental property perspective, we will just about double the amount of units there. That allows future relocation as we go into the other phases to actually have the ability, if the resident chooses to do so, to locate into those buildings. But that shows you how far the site is underutilized, that with just one phase, you're nearly reaching double the number of units. So the buildings in orange that are overlaid there are the existing buildings, which are 13 buildings totaling 116 units. The numbers below that are the physical, each building has a number on the current plan. And we're adding 3 buildings, which I mentioned earlier, buildings A, B, and C. And these 3 buildings will add that 900 plus units. So it's quite an achievement to be done in the first phase to address that. As far as timelines for the first phase, we are intending to apply, and we've been before this committee and explained the differences between applying for a tax credit versus a non-tax credit. The tax credit, once a year, February of a given calendar year. In order to do that, you have to have your entitlements in place. So that's what we're working with the county currently of Honolulu, and thanks to staff and councils and city committee here efforts, we hope to have the entitlement needed to qualify to apply on Feb 16 for the LIHTC Tower for the funding application of 2024. If we are lucky, and we should get some priority being state-owned, TOD, and all of the above, but again, we're competing, we should receive an award come August, September, which is standard, typical process. We plan to kick off working drawings once we have entitlements so that when we get an award, we're ready to jump in for submittal to expedite building permit processing and hopefully start construction in 2025. The second tower, being Building B, is the 80% to 100%. That has a different application, as we've discussed in previous meetings, that is coupled with RHRF Tier 2. That one occurs later on in the year. I wouldn't say there's a typical date because it's only been done once before in 2022, hence hard to use the word typical, but projected. Again, an allocation before the end of the year. With that and the fact that the working drawings, we would be able to start buildings A and B that share a podium at the same time in 2025, which is the goal, with a projected construction completion in 2028. The goal thereafter is every 2 to 3 years, which allows us, in this case, it takes about 2+ years to finish like the first phase. Then we'd be moving to the next phase and the next phase, so on and so forth. There will be the standard construction controls as far as noise, dust, traffic, and all of that during construction to mitigate the effect on the rest of the community. High Ridge Costa, through its general contractor, and anticipated for this one being Hawaiian Dredging, have worked on numerous parcels where we are directly adjacent to existing building and existing residents, and therefore we take beyond just the standard noise controls and that need to be done and dust controls and everything into heart to take care of the property owners and residents next door. Next slide, please. Again, focusing on phase 1, but it gives you the example, as we mentioned in the previous chart, of the other buildings. It gives you a breakdown of the variety of floor plans, and I would like to take a minute here to talk about that variety of floor plans. So let's go to Building A, in this case, which is the very first row, and what you will see is the floor plans. Studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and 5 bedrooms. 4 bedrooms and 5 bedrooms are atypical in a rental community. They're not typical. However, looking at the current unit mix within Mayor Wright, there is a number of 5-bedroom units and there's a number of 4-bedroom units. And with the direction from the Housing Authority, we want to be in a position that those families returning that need a 4-bedroom unit and a 5-bedroom unit, we can accommodate that request. We are not replacing all the 4 bedrooms and the 5 bedrooms in the first phase, but they will be spread out through the phases so that they're integrated within the rest of the community. But it is an important thing to take note of that there is a significant focus on large family units, 93 2s, 33s, 10 4s, 5 5s, and that is quite remarkable for a rental community. The next building also has a mix of studios 1s, 2s, and 3s. And those residents returning, because they do hold those vouchers, can actually live in either building. They can live in the 60% or they live in the 80 to 100%. It's a matter of where their income qualification goes, but it really is a direct benefit to integrating them into both income rangings within both demographic, and that is quite an integration from a social equity perspective. And then finally, the last building also has 1s, 2s, and 3s that are for sale. which is something we've been working closely with the Housing Authority to effect a for-sale model. And we hope that that building would be the first, and we would get that working and then implement such concept of for-sale on other sites. The projected is still at 140% AMI and lower, but that is being refined. Next slide, please. These are incomes that you're very familiar with the LIHTC standard, 30 to 60%. It just kind of shows you the, roughly 10%, 10 at 30, 10 at 50, and the rest at 60, which is a standard LIHTC AMI range. On the missing middle, 20% at 80, the balance at 100, and the for sale right now is projected between 110 to 140, but it's really market-driven. We're not necessarily looking for an affordable component. Any exemptions being requested from the county will comply with the affordability requirements of the county to get such exemptions, and we're not asking for an exemption from that. Next slide, please. In what we've done before you, when we talk about rental, we try to explain what the income range is for 30 to 60 and 80 to 100. The box with the dotted line focuses on that range between 30 to 60%. And the outside the dotted line takes you to the 80 to 100%, provides you with a continuum for those that go above the 60%, want to move into 80 to 100%, and hopefully want to move into for sale. So it'll be a good continuum within that community. Next slide, please. These are the published rent ranges for rents between 30 to 60% and 80 to 100%. As you very well know, these are published rents that are dictated by the state of Hawaii. They are subject to an affordability restriction by the state at 60%, subject to an affordability restriction by the landlord, lessor being the Housing Authority for an even longer period. These are the gross rents, and typically there is a deduction from the gross rent based on the utility allowance that is published by the respective county, which results in a lower rent, and that is the net rent that the residents pay. Both rents and utility allowance are published, and we have to comply with those. They're dictated to us. They're not a choice. Next slide, please. We wanted to take your focus from the initial renderings that we're showing you and wanted to show you renderings of phase one with the rest of the site remaining, then the rest of the site being built, so you can get a perspective. We tried to use the same angles we presented, but isolate the first phase. This one, again, is Mackay view from Vineyard. Where the mouse is currently, that is the LIHTC tower, 30 to 60. The next one is the rental, 80 to 100. And the next one is the for sale component. If I go back to the LIHTC tower and the 80 to 100, you'll find that there is a shared podium deck with a variety of amenities, pool area, exercise rooms, deck areas, and just a whole concept of shared podium external amenity in order to bring the residents out of their units and get them to participate in shared activities, in shared communities, in shared common space in order to create that sense of community versus providing amenities that are restricted to each tower separately. So that's the objective there. The third tower is across the street, and by just simple design, because it's across the street, has its own amenity area and deck area. Next slide, please. Again, focusing on the first phase, this is on the corner of Vineyard and Pua Lane, is the 30 to 60%. You will see on top of the parking structure deck area, there are solar panels. We will be focusing on sustainability and additional items, including the solar panels. While they will not be LEED certified, they will be LEED qualified, and we will apply all those energy and efficiency and sustainability principles to the design on all three buildings and the rest of the community. There will be commercial on the ground floor in various areas focused on serving the community that is being developed. Next slide, please. This is the same view from Vineyard Boulevard. You'll see the ingress-egress that's going to be created off of Vineyard Boulevard, showing in this case on the right-hand side the 80 to 100 tower, and on the left-hand side the for sale. Next slide. Again, view from Vineyard Boulevard, this time kind of looking towards Pua Lane, where you see the 30 to 60% and so on and so forth. Next slide. And these are internal views, but we've showed some of these, so we'll skip. And where we are in the schedule, we've been working on our 201H EP application with HHFDC. It will be going to the director. We've had multiple resident meetings. We've met with the neighborhood board. By the way, neighborhood board is ecstatic to actually see development happening and happening so quickly. And I think they were rather speechless when we said we are targeting an approval by January. And so they were very happy to see that. In addition to attending the neighborhood board meeting, a couple of members from the neighborhood board meeting attended our town hall meeting in December and continued to be very much supportive of the development. As you know, DPP, which under the EP will be approving this, is holding their own public meeting on Monday, the 22nd at 10 a.m. at Palama Settlement. And we'll obviously continue as this develops. This is a long-term, a decade-plus master development, continuing to meet on a regular basis with the residents, with the community, with the neighborhood board, continuing community outreach as we continue to develop the master plan. Next slide. And now to the fun part. Questions?
Okay, Ms. Mo, would it be possible to have Hakeem say a few words from Hawaii Public Housing Authority?
Aloha, everyone. It's good to see you all. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I just want to echo what my partner over there has said. It took us a while to really find a good partner. We made sure we put a committee of 9 people from the community to be able to go through all the applicants that applied for this project and make a selection. And we're very pleased, actually ecstatic, seeing the work that it's been done just in the last 6 months, really much greater than what others do in 2, 3, or 4 or 5 years. As Mo has indicated, the reason we selected this property for a lot of reasons, besides being a 7-year-old. Concentration of poverty is a thing of the past. It's a formula that has never worked. So we're trying to keep the 364 units so we can keep the affordability for life, but we add in an additional 2,100 units just in that site. And by creating those different incomes, we create a deconcentration of poverty, something that has been working for the last few years here in United States. With that, I know everyone's busy. I'd rather just stop at that, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any questions for Mo or Hakeem? Okay, Councilmember Kiana.
Thank you. And I have a series, but I'll go through 2 elements and then rotate with my colleagues here, if you don't mind. So first off, thank you very much for the presentation, Mo. I wanted to preface my questions by saying that overall I am excited by the potential for significantly increasing the number of units at Mayor Wright's from 364 units to 2,448, which, if I understand correctly, would be the anticipated number of units that the project will have at the end of the 4 phases. I also generally support the idea of mixed AMI projects. Data supports that mixing very low-income households with moderate and higher-income households has positive results for lower-income households and families. However, I am trying to understand whether this project will result in a net positive in terms of the number of federally supported HPHA rental units, where the maximum rent is either 30% of the family's adjusted income or a flat rent established by HUD. Also, I strongly support the Council's current policy of limiting financial incentives like fee waivers to units that meet certain AMI thresholds, and I'm hoping that DPP uses this policy in its approval process. This policy is captured in Resolution 20-262 and limits, for example, wastewater system facility charge and park dedication waivers only for units offered for sale to households earning 120% AMI or lower, or for rent to households earning 80% AMI or lower. So my first question relating to the scope of your request, I just wanted to confirm with regard to the waivers being sought, is it only applicable to phase 1 or the 911 units, or are you seeking it for all 4 phases?
As to the second part of the question, there's 2 parts to the question. Part A of the exemption question which you clearly delineated as to the 60% AMI, 80% AMI, and so on and so forth, we intend to work with DPP to comply with those limitations and those waivers, and we're not asking for anything beyond that. To the second part of the question, are those exemptions applied across the entire master plan? The answer is yes. For those buildings that will be 60% AMI, which we showed a number of buildings. Can we go back to the chart? Number of buildings that are 60%, they will ask for the exemptions they qualify for. Those that are 80 to 100% will ask for the exemptions they qualify for, and so on and so forth. So it will be for the entire master plan. As to the, I want to make sure I answered that question, Council Member.
Sure, sure.
Okay.
I'm going to move forward if you don't mind.
No, let's go back to your first question. I got to catch up first. The first question, though, I have to rephrase the question and explain exactly what is happening here. What you are doing is you're taking public housing out and putting it into what's called the current low-income housing, LIHC, LIHTC program, or the 501c3, or the tax-exempt bonds that are non-private activity. So the reality is this is not a project-based subsidy development, meaning if none of the 364 residents wish to return, that doesn't mean that there is subsidy on that project. They will rent and they will pay rent like a standard LIHTC program or otherwise. Should the housing authority have additional vouchers and wish to add, they have the right to do so. But it's not contemplating having project-based subsidy at this time. So these will act and behave for anybody coming to rent. They have to have their own income and verifiable income. It's workforce housing at the low, very low 30% all the way to 100%. Those returning will have their vouchers in hand and will get the same treatment as to the amount they're renting. And should there be additional vouchers that come in, which is very standard, by the way, in many of our affordability housing communities that we've developed so far, that there are sometimes mobile HPHA voucher or also mobile vouchers from the Community Development Services County and City of Honolulu that by fair housing have to be accepted. So that's kind of I'll let Hakeem, though, comment further.
Okay, thank you. And then my other series of questions relate to my comments about the federal HPHA rentals or the Housing Authority's rentals. To clarify, is it accurate that the current 364 units being replaced are federally supported Housing Authority units with federally determined maximum rents? And if the answer is yes, will all 364 of these units be replaced with the same rent maximums?
Yes, the short answer is 100% yes. And the reason we only kept it to 364 because the federal government has passed a fair cloth limit law, which limit us to the maximum of 1998. That number for Mayor Wright is 364. So we will keep 364 units as such that the people can only pay 30% of their income so long as they qualify for that income level.
Terrific. And will all of these units be replaced within the first phase?
No, we're trying to deconcentrate the poverty, so we don't want people to point to Tower 1 as the public housing component. So we're going to spread it around the entire project. That way, we're trying to keep about 10 to 12% of public housing at each tower. So there is, at any given time, as you have said, there is mixed income in
Got it.
towers.
So I'm trying to understand if the project will ultimately result in a net positive number of federally supported units.
So that will be, because anytime you do a disposition with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, they create something to protect the tenant, what it's called, and Mo referred to it, it's a tenant protection voucher. So when you get the tenant protection voucher, for example, in this case, we're going to have 364. It does not kill the ACC units, and therefore you have the tenant protection vouchers that pay 30% of their income. In addition, you have a public housing, also considered an ACC unit, an annual contribution contract unit. You have that number that you can use through different mechanism of funding, such as RAD, or Section 18 or others that you can convert later on. So in effect, it adds this subsidy, the number of subsidized units.
I'm sorry. And then just for clarification purposes for myself, just two remaining relating to this question.
Sure.
So how many of the 911 units will be federally supported units? And how many of the 2,448 units will be federally supported units?
Out of the 2,448 units, 364 units that we currently have will continue to be on the 30% level. On the first tower, it's 164 that's going to be demolished. That's the number that is going to be.
Okay, thank you. Chair, if you don't mind, I will allow my other colleagues to ask questions, and then I'll go into other questions.
Councilmember Cordero?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I don't know who this will be for. I guess my main question is, I did get the opportunity to work prior to redistricting, as well as staff for it, to see the different charrettes even at 5 a.m., where staff and residents were able to have discussions on their thoughts about the property. And of course, as the community is excited, we are just as excited. And I know that the last thing that we talked about prior to, at the beginning of 2020 probably, was regarding infrastructure. And so it's good that the conversations regarding infrastructure along the corridors, I guess the main intersections, and then along with the neighboring Evile area would continue, because we know that it's going to be a continuous, I don't want to say it's an issue at the moment, but something that we need to, I guess, be on top of. With that, relating to the residents' charrettes and feedback, it's good to see that you had the resident meetings. I know I do see the refined plan regarding, but that has changed in the past year or so. So I was wondering, what was the timeline, and what specific points did the residents come up with that assisted in the refined plan, master plan for the property?
So in the first resident meeting that we had ourselves as Harwich Costa, we went ahead and reviewed the plans and the charrettes that were conducted before. We highlighted the areas that we felt the residents felt important and told them that we're going to come back with a much more refined plan and share that with them, which we went back with the refined plan that is before you today, shared that with them. They were actually very ecstatic and happy with the plan that was provided. There were some questions here and there, but they liked the open plan concept, they liked the park area concept, they liked the podium area concept. There were some concerns about the larger units being in the taller buildings, but we do have some of the larger 4 and 5 bedroom buildings along the roadways versus going into the buildings. So that was kind of came back from the residents' meetings and resident feedback. There was a focus on amenities, and they wanted to know what amenities they have. I know I got a big high five from a lot of the kids when they saw the pool area. That was one of the feedback. They were quite surprised. They said, you actually listened to come back. So that is incorporated in the affordable housing design. So in general, the input and the studies that were done were recapped. We came back and showed what we kept and what we refined, and it was very well received by the residents themselves. There was a huge focus, needless to say, on the relocation concept and timing. Those were addressed, and they were told the process that we shared with you was shared with them several times, because that is currently a big concern. And some of the residents at Mayor Wright also attend our town hall meeting, and they heard what we said to the community and what we promised to the community, because they wanted to make sure that the message being delivered to them is the same message being delivered to the community. They had some additional questions which were answered. So hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. Another thing that I think could be a component is relating to the services that are provided at Mayor Wright currently. I know that Hawaii Literacy often has events and outreach there. I know Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, and of course a lot of programs that support many of the families there. Will that continue on at Mayor Wright, especially with the increase in properties, increase in units?
Yes, we're going to work very closely with those nonprofit as well additional nonprofits to bring a variety of services. In the plan designs, we've created community meeting rooms and community meeting spaces to allow for these meetings to continue. We're also working with our neighbors at Palama Settlement for the variety of programs that they have to encourage our residents to take advantage of the Palama Settlement programs. We've met with them and will continue coordinating our efforts. We also hope to bring some of the programs that they're doing over at Palama Settlement to come and visit on site so that our residents have direct access. We're also going to be looking at the corner there and on Pua Lane and Vineyard to make accessibility to Palama Settlement. So the answer is not only yes, are we going to focus on bringing these partners to provide the current and hopefully more services such as financial planning, wellness, all of the above, but we also intend to work closely with the surrounding neighbors such as Palama Settlement to expand the available services beyond what we just can provide.
That's great. And I'm glad. I know during the charrettes, they mentioned about, instead of receiving services, they would want to see, of course, the on-site shopping and services. So that's really good. As for the community center in Building G, is it only just one community center?
No, there is a community center in each building. Each building, but this is a larger community center for the community to gather. But each building has a community center. In the case of where you see a shared decks,
Yes.
AB, ED, all the shared decks have shared community spaces on the deck. But this is a larger Mayor Right type, which we're going to program and activate with our partner, the Housing Authority. What can we do there? What can we do? What other programs can we do there? In the programs that you mentioned, we're working with several agencies, Pacific Resources actually is here, and looking to do job training on site. So we're going to be working closely with Pacific Resource Partners to see what job training, what apprenticeship programs, what can be brought. So this is hopefully how we can activate that larger community space in doing that.
Okay, thank you. I think I just have like 2 more questions. Is that okay? Okay, thank you. Of course, with the mixed-use AMI, I'm glad that our Council Vice Chair Kia Aina mentioned about the data that does show how mixed AMI does help. And of course, how are you looking to reach occupancy equity? I believe you know how prioritizing, ensuring that there's enough occupancy at each AMI level on property once all the phases are complete.
So ensuring so any resident, voucher or non-voucher, will walk in depending on where they qualify. So if I go just to use actual examples of communities we completed, there's a huge demand for the 30% AMI units, but there's a limited number. There's going to be 10% at 30%. There's another 10% at 50%. So it's a matter of kind of first come, first serve. So in the case of the residents that Mr. Awansafi mentioned earlier, the first people on the list that will have the right of return are the existing residents that want to come back, and they'll get that selection. However, having vouchers with them really makes the rent level 30, 40, 50, 60, all the way up to even 100, actually, they would be income blind to that restriction because that voucher covers the difference. As to the other residents that are coming in, it's a matter of availability, who comes in, but it is distributed per the percentages, 10 at 30, 10 at 50, in this case 80 at 60, 20 at 80, and 80 at 100, if I did my math right.
Okay, got it. And since there's going to be new units, it will be following all the building and I guess zoning codes so that all the new units and buildings are up to code, right? Whether it be access, fire, accessibility, and safety and all of that.
No exception on code on fire, safety, access, ADA, or any of the above. No exception here, affordable or otherwise, housing authority or not. So yes, they will all be followed.
Okay, Director?
So in some cases, we'll go above what is a minimum required. For example, the ADA 5% and 2%. We are mandating 6.8% and 3.4% because we have done a study and find out the aging population will require more. So we'll go even more than the 5 and 2%.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to do this.
Okay.
So yes, 6.8%. However, because those are elevated building, All units are adaptable and all units are accessible. There's a difference between the percentage when you talk about built-out units. So whether it's 2%, 5%, or 6.8%, those are built-out units. However, if you use up all the units in an elevator building and someone comes in and 10 people come in and 50 people come in, by law, all of the units are accessible and all of the units are adaptable. So it's very interesting when that question is asked, and I hear it a lot. Once you go in an elevator building, in reality, if you have 60 units that are built out and 100 people show up, as a landlord, we're required by fair housing and law to adapt those units to their needs. And since this is an elevator building, that requirement is on 100% of every unit that is on an elevated floor. So it goes way and above and beyond. I just wanted to one-up Hakeem. Now I feel much better.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I was also wondering about the need for the bicycle parking exemption request.
Adaptively. Sorry, I apologize. Can you repeat the question?
Why is there a need for bicycle parking exemption? So if I take the number 3 and it goes by Mayor Wright, and then I see a lot of people coming on or off with their bikes, I feel like I think you should be able to meet the bicycle parking minimum at least.
We will meet the bike. I understand that came in the list of exemptions. We will revisit that. We will meet the biking requirement.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
all for bikes.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember DeSantis, please.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to thank the whole team here for hosting these meetings at Mayor Wright. I had the chance to attend the December meeting that was held on property in the rain. There were a lot of people there. I mean, it was pouring out on the lawn there. And then the next day at Lanakila, which attracted some neighbors. I want to thank you for doing that, and I hope that this won't be the end of these outreach sessions to the neighbors. This will be a big change for the lower Laliha and Palama area, and I think keeping neighbors informed and the residents is a huge step. So first of all, I want to thank you for that. I do want to ask, just for the record, how your conversations with the Department of Education have been, given that there are lots of students here, and as students move, that's going to affect the attendance at the 3 elementary schools that serve Mayor Wright. How have those conversations gone?
So thank you for the email introduction and connecting with them. We have had previous meeting, but we still need to do one-on-one meetings with each of the schools. That has not happened. That is something that will happen. The concerns that Councilmember DeSantis is highlighting is obviously when you move 116 units in families, there's going to be a reduction in those schools. We will be able to better determine what that reduction is based on how many relocate outside the specific school or school area that they're in. That will be better defined once the relocation plan is in process. They also are asking as to the number of projected families. So we still have quite a bit of work to do. Councilmember DeSantis, those meetings have not occurred, but we will be following up on them and we will report back to you.
I wanted to also report that there are certain restrictions from HUD for us to share the data, but today we took the first step. The board has approved in our board meeting to be able to add it to the PHA plan, and we're going to make an official request from HUD to allow us to share tenant information directly with DOE.
Good. I'm really glad to hear that because I know that this has been a big concern for those 3 schools. I also wanted to ask about what do you think the likelihood of acquiring the 2 properties that are grayed out along North King Street and Deshaw Lane? And the reason why I ask is, as you mentioned, that building I, and I suppose building G, which is also a little bit shorter, are deliberately made shorter because they're adjacent to a different kind of use, in that case commercial, and there's sort of a very odd sort of apartment there. What's the likelihood of acquiring those? And subsequently, if they were to be acquired, what would be the timeline to come back either before us or HPHA to possibly amend the plan to have more units? It'd be great to have more units, especially at the bottom of the AMI level.
Yeah, thank you. We believe that the entire block will be complete if we acquire those units. We are keeping our eyes on it. The idea is to do the first phase, have some units start to get built, and then we'll be making some, not just inquiries, but we'll try to find what is the best way to acquire those properties.
All right, and I also just want to, thank you for the slide about the traffic mitigations. I know some of those are already in progress, which is good. I think as this multi-year project goes on, this isn't a question, but just some advice. I hope that you'd continue talking with DTS. Liliha is a huge bus corridor. The buses sometimes back up there, and there's going to be a lot of new riders, hopefully from Mayor Wright, both on rail and bus. So I think paying a lot of attention to that bus service is important, as well as we did put in funding for complete streets improvements on Kanoa Street. And I think once we have a whole lot more residents in this area, that street's going to be activated in a big way. So hopefully we can get those improvements done in a timeline that matches yours.
John, Mr. Nouchi, would you like to say a few words from DTS in regards to the traffic concerns voiced by Councilmember DeSantos Tam?
Aloha, for the record, John Nouchi, Deputy Director, DTS. I just popped in here out of interest. So I didn't intend to speak, but that being said, I do appreciate Councilmember Dos Santos Tam encouraging the connection between DTS and High Ridge Costa at this time. I think it is very important as we look at these changes that are happening right in the heart of our central city, and these are routes and transit ways that have been in place for over 100 years. And the fact is that they were busy 100 years ago, they're busier now, and with the density that we're encouraging here, they'll be busier still. So we have to make sure that we develop responsibly and we provide that infrastructure. I always see mobility as a basic need and a basic right. And so really do want to use this opportunity and this connection to make sure that everyone's mobility is unfettered and free as we densify this already busy area.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the Deputy Director, Department of Transportation Service? Any other questions for the developers? Mr. Mohana, Mo, just a couple of questions. And for Hakeem, just to say thank you. But the first question that I have in your statement that you made earlier, that for our building A, why that particular site is because of what we have as far as the present infrastructure.
Correct.
Will the Hawaii Public Housing Authority then submit a budget for B and C as far as infrastructure needs?
So I apologize. The infrastructure will support A, B, and C.
Oh, A,
That's
B,
why
and
the
C.
first phase is only A, B, and C. We've limited it to the 900 units because we believe that the best of the due diligence we've received so far, and we're still waiting on additional responses from HECO and other agencies, that it will support A, B, and C, but that's it at this point.
Okay.
So beyond A, B, and C, there will be additional improvements that will be needed on the electrical grid as well as the sewer, and hence the staggered development of the other phases.
And then in your presentation, Mo, on the highlights of the master plan refined, I don't understand when you say for building A, everything is going to be financed by LIHTC?
Building number A, correct. So building number A,
This one? Yeah. This,
yes, we'll go to that one. No, the one, go back. Yes. So this building number A, 306 units, they will all be financed by tax-exempt bonds coupled with federal and state credits and RHRF.
Okay.
And all 306 units, except for the manager, assistant manager, maintenance units, will be restricted to rents ranging from 30 to 60% of the area median income.
Okay, got it. And then for building B, it's going to be financed by just the 501c?
So, yeah, I mean, basically, they will be financed by a structure using tax-exempt bonds that doesn't tap into any of the private activity bonds needed for the 60% that is scarce and needed, and they will be coupled with RHRF Tier 2, and they will serve families earning between $80,000 to 100% of the area median income.
Okay. So I just wanted to make Mr. Craig Hirai, who is now the acting director, or when he went back to HHFDC
Oh, Craig Hirai is the executive administrative assistant.
to
The interim director is still Dean.
Dean
Yeah.
Company. No, I did pose a question last week at the zoning committee hearing in regards to, will we max out the LIHTC tax credits, whereby this particular state project takes everything at the expense of other private developers?
No, the current submittal of this particular Building A, which is going in 2024, as well as the submittal for the other housing authority project in Kauai, neither of them will max out the available tax-exempt bonds available for other projects. Other projects will be able to submit and compete for such an allocation.
Okay, that's great. And one final thought, I just wanted to say, congratulations on getting it done, Hakeem. It's been a great number of years. And I apologize for not attending the School Street dedication that occurred last week. But on behalf of the members of the council, we just wanted to say thank you very much for the presentation. But please stay, because we'll get the Department of Planning and Permitting to share their thoughts about the project itself. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is anyone from DPP? Miss Elizabeth Kruger.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. I'm Elizabeth Krieger. I am the Land Use Permits Division Chief for the Department of Planning and Permitting.
Okay, please. Your thoughts about the project or DPP's? You folks are going to have a hearing. So,
That's right.
okay.
We'll be having a hearing. I do have staff here who have reviewed the plan. I don't know how many questions we're ready to answer. It's been a very, very tight turnaround. This is an unprecedented kind of occurrence where we've gotten this application under the governor's emergency proclamation. So unlike most of the time when we come before you with a 201H, our analysis and review is not yet complete.
Okay. Councilmember Cordero?
Yes.
No? Go right ahead.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Hi, Ms. Kruger. Thank you for being here. So my question is, then what is the process after the hearing, after DPP reviews it? When will the council be presented with the exemptions that were approved and the comments that DPP has for the applicant?
The governor's emergency proclamation doesn't lay out any such process. I have the same kinds of questions. There's supposed to be some kind of executed instrument that the director of the county planning departments would enter into with the applicant. Perhaps HPHA can answer questions about how the governor's proclamation was put together.
Okay.
DPP wasn't involved.
Okay. I guess also, are there any limitations or expectations of DPP that you know of, such as a timeline to approve these things? I mean, requests or applications?
I believe they're hoping that we will respond by something like February 2nd, February 8th. Normally, the governor's proclamation does lay out a 45-day process in the same way that the city council would normally have 45 days, but in this case, the applicant is asking us to do it much faster in order for their timeline for their financial applications.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Liz, best wishes as far as your public hearing for this particular measure. Are there any other questions for both the developer and the department. Yes.
Sure, thank you. I guess this is for Director Wansafi regarding the formulation of the emergency proclamation and how, I guess, a timeline for approval. Yeah, I guess a timeline for approval for projects like this.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted first to really thank the council and DPP for working with us. It is a tight timeline, and the reason for that is we do know, especially the housing authority, anytime we open a wait list, there's 10,000 people in line trying to get some housing. So to meet the deadline of February for the financial that's coming up on us, so we did ask and request, and they've been working with us diligently so we can meet that deadline. Because if we miss it, we have to wait another year, the entire year. There is certainly support from the community. The legislature has given us $10 million to last session to expedite this process. So we're hoping, and at the request of DPP director, she wants to hear directly from the community. So she called in a meeting that she wants to make sure before she approves. I think that once that's done, it gets more forward. For other projects, usually there is enough time that we're able to do the 45 days. No, but we're very, very, very grateful on behalf of everyone that's going to benefit the most vulnerable of our population, that they're really working hard trying to meet our deadline. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Well, in my particular case, Hakeem and Mo, I'd like to see you folks more often. I'm only joking. But no. But just on behalf of the members of the zoning committee, want to thank all of you for your presentation, number one. Number two, most of us were not having any opportunity of, questioning or doing things because it is done by executive order. And number three, this is the first time that we are experiencing a governor's emergency proclamation in allowing these type of exemptions to occur, which is our 201H. One final plug. Can you change the chapter HRS 201H to 45 days to 120 days for our council members so that we can go over and review all of these 201H application projects? I'm only kidding, Hakeem and Mo, but thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. Is there any thoughts? No? You're fine. Tyler, this is your district? Okay. And finally, Radiant, any other questions? No? Okay. In closing, Ms. Mo.
Yes, I just really want to add to what Hakeem said. For DPP staff and the work that they're doing, we did try to come as soon as this went to HHFDC, and HHFDC Planning Department did review it and send out to agency comment, and we tried to share. There's no question that it's a tight timeline. The only thing I mentioned to Council, urgency on some of these developments, is their age and the current condition. We're not dealing with a vacant site. We're not dealing with a commercial site that's vacant. We're dealing with families that currently the units are so old that it is imperative not only not to have 45 days, with all due respect, I'm just talking from an emotional mode speaking, maybe have 4 hours. Let's get going. We need to put these people in better living conditions. So this is, when we're looking at this, we're not looking at a typical site in an area that's difficult to develop, that's vacant, that can stay vacant. We're talking about people's lives. And it is important, and I invite you to come and visit. It is important, and every time we go there, and Council Member DeSantos, as he said, he was there, and I took a shower in the morning, I took a shower that night when we were talking in the rain, but they're very happy about the change. They want to see the change. Some of them has said they've lived there for 15, 16 years, and they want to come back. This is home. And so some of them have come to me and said, it's about time, we want to see. We've talked about this, talked about it. And what they said, the message they sent us that I'm taking to heart and asking respectfully everybody to do so is enough talking. Get this done. So I want to thank Council, I want to thank Committee, I want to thank DPP, thank HHFDC and HPHA for the efforts that are being expended. Thank you very much.
Okay, Council Member Kiana.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to make a comment. First of all, this whole team and your project is just unprecedented and needs to be commended. But I do share concerns about other 201H projects, perhaps not going through the city council that doesn't quite clearly demonstrate the either the public or community benefit. For your project was overwhelming, of course, because it's a state project, but I can't say the same for others. For others, some projects need to demonstrate that they warrant certain exemptions and waivers and demonstrate that it's in the public good that they're doing the project. And so I just want to tell the chair that this project is different. I'm hoping that this is not a bellwether for all future 201H projects. I just want to say that because it wouldn't be fair. Again, this is a different project, and I'm pleased that you had the hearing today.
Well, Vice Chair, I agree with you 110% because I looked at it from a different point of view. Yes, we are supporting affordable housing, public housing, etc., but it comes with an expense from the city. With all of these exemptions that they qualify for, we have the course of action to say yes or no in approving or disapproving the 201H projects. And in this particular case, for the executive director of HPHA, I wanted to congratulate him because it's been a long, long journey in seeing these projects, bear its fruits. So the final thought for me is that it's going to take you 10 years to get the job done, and I hope you folks can accomplish it within the next 10 years. Because there's so many, how would you say, outside factors that we cannot control, and you just got to put your nose to the grindstone and just move ahead and try your best. So I feel good because we are addressing the 22,000 units that we are short, and you're correct. Sometimes I wonder for the residents of Palolo housing, do they appreciate what they have today too, So members, in closing, I wanted to just say thank you very much for attending this meeting. At this point in time, I have to go through the formality for the people who are here. We will now proceed with remote testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any remote testifiers?
Yes, Chair, we have testifiers standing by.
Okay, we do have testifiers, so I apologize. Miss Angela Young. Ms. Young? Oh, and I see you, Angela. Can you unmute yourself? Ms. Young, are you there?
Testifying.
Hello?
Yes.
I have to provide. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Aloha. Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES. And CARES is always supportive of those suffering from wealth inequities and income disparities who are experiencing poverty, and to build for them because this is what equity is about. And actually, public housing like Kukui Gardens, KPT, has a negative image which goes back to when real estate development interests said to the federal government, so you want to build more housing, but we don't want you to compete with us, so we're going to do an income restriction, and we're not going to allow you to grow the supply of housing or sell your housing to the middle class, and you can only rent or sell to the very poor. And as a result of those decisions that have been reinforced over the years, public housing is a concentration of poverty, always needing a large payer subsidy and never being maintained or repaired as well as the private sector housing. And these are the results of decisions made, and which continues to be made, to have the government not compete with the private sector. And public housing that was envisioned was that it be income blind and revenue neutral. And there's talk about new vision. So,
Okay, Ms. Young, thank you very much for your testimony in regards to the Mayor Rights Project.
oh, okay, yes, I support mayor rights. And okay.
And just go get them. You're at the state capitol right now. I can see the background. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Next, Madam Clerk, we do have Michelle Leong. Is Ms. Leong here? Miss Leong, Michelle? Okay, she's not here. Is there anyone else that would like to testify remotely?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you very much. We will now proceed with the in-person testimony. Madam Clerk, we do have a in-person testifier, Chris Delaney. Chris?
Aloha, Chair and committee members. Chris Delaney with Pacific Resource Partnership in strong support of the project. I mean, we all know that we're in a housing crisis, and this is going to bring much-needed housing to a community that's in dire need of redevelopment. This is going to bring 2,448 homes that will be a part of a real community. You know, we saw the presentation. There's parks, community centers, a pool. I mean, this is going to be just a great opportunity. It's going to be a place where people are really going to feel a sense of home and community, I believe. And we've been waiting so long for this redevelopment to occur. And now we have the opportunity to transform this project in a vibrant community that will bring much needed housing and economic opportunities to Hawaii residents. Moreover, I'd like to also say this project is going to create lots of construction jobs for Hawaii residents, paying them a living wage with benefits. These types of jobs provide residents with the opportunity to afford Hawaii's high cost of living, keep residents off of welfare and other government assistance programs, and stimulate the local economy and provide economic stability for workers and their families. And we also have an opportunity to partner up with developer to create more, to build our workforce with this project as well. We need this workforce. We want to make sure that our local residents are getting the jobs and building the affordable housing we need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Chris? If there is no questions, thank you very much for your testimony in support. Madam Clerk, are there any further testifiers in the chambers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. At this point in time, members, we are in discussion. Any discussion? Nope. Okay. If there is no further discussion, and being there no further business, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, all of you, for your attendance.